you, Ron. Welcome, everyone. I'm Brandon. You know, we're discussing tonight pages 68 through 112. So if you read further, I know many of you have, if you read further, just kind of keep that in mind. We're discussing tonight 68 through 112. And this section starts with Juan slapping Ana. I think she opened the door. What happened? She opened the door and got some mail from the neighbor, and that was enough, I guess, to set Juan into a rage. And you know, I thought about this in these terms, not necessarily. It was strange when I first read that section. I didn't automatically think, oh no, this is so horrible. This man is like beating on his wife. What I immediately kind of thought was kind of how that whole scene represented this like transactional relationship that Juan and Ana had. What excites Ana about the relationship, Ana and Mama, really, is what? Material things, money, clothes, perfumes, cars, Buicks. And what excites Juan about the relationship is, I mean, who knows, maybe several things, but maybe something as simple as having someone to come home and hit, you know what I'm saying? It's like love is not in this equation, right? Like at all, from the start to the finish. And so I kind of thought about what we were talking about last week, about what are some of the reasons that marriage is such a celebration to people coming together. That's such a celebration for everyone involved, even the people that go, even the witnesses, the people that just witness. Such a big celebration for us, you know. Yet this relationship is so transactional. You know, it doesn't have any of that. All of that is gone, right? That high really that people get, that women get, that their moms get, everyone around them gets, the bridesmaids, you know, that high is completely gone. And it's kind of just immediate. We are thrown immediately into the problems, and the problems start immediately, right? What do y'all think about that? Does that make sense, kind of what I'm saying? How transactional this marriage really is in every sense of the word?
Brandon, you're not married, right?
No.
And don't get discouraged. But remember, there's this age discrepancy also. I mean, what, she's 15?
Well,
he's 30? Oy.
I think he's 32.
And it's what they call an arranged marriage, you know? That goes back to, back.
But in speaking of transactions, I noticed how we kind of missed that part of the transaction, because they got married and they didn't get married. It was so arranged that her birth date was changed. She became suddenly older, and resonated with me because that is something, those type of marriages are very common in the Dominican Republic. I'm from the Dominican Republic, so it resonated with me because it's sort of like it's been instituted for a while. They call it, how would I translate that? If somebody else can help me, I don't remember. Marriage al vapor. It's a term used for those type of marriages, which meaning like steam, and it's a legal thing. It's happened. Some stars have gone to the DR to get married. I believe Michael Jackson got married in the Dominican Republic, because it's a legal thing, not changing someone's birth, but you know, we missed that part of the transaction. It's sort of like, and so it is transactional, but we jump right into it. And I underlined that because I wasn't expecting the slap so soon. I was like, what's going on here? She opened the door to some person who was legitimate, and he slaps her. So that caught me by surprise. Like he was either dying to do that or wanted to establish that. So that's kind of how it happened with me.
I think he's quickly showing his true colors, you know, who he really is, as opposed to who he is perceived to be in the Dominican Republic. I mean, Juan is not as big of a businessman. He's not a businessman at all in America, and even his business in the Dominican Republic is quite small and fragile. You know, it's, even though the people in the country believe it's a big restaurant, the way it's described, it's like a little runty kind of shack thing.
Definitely.
Nevertheless, it's a business.
Yeah,
And
there's a
compare
business.
it to Anna's lifestyle.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's like the farm life or, you know, like rural living. So of course he's up there, you know, he's money bucks. The whole family, the Ruiz family.
But in America, they're not. In America, they are just working people, barely working people.
Yeah, barely
And
working.
But I think that's part of what happens when there's a perception of what the life is in the US and in the United States. I remember as a kid going to spend my summers in Honduras, and there was this perception that you have money, that there was that extra money, that you would go, and it was like, you know, the phrase was always like, when you leave, déjame eso. So when you leave, can you leave me your sneakers? Can you leave me those shorts? Can you leave me X, Y, and Z? And I'm like, you know, as I got older, I got it, but as a kid, I really couldn't understand why this whole perception that, you know, that living in the US wasn't slightly a dial better than living in Honduras or DR or Puerto Rico or what have you.
Remember the saying, the streets are paved with gold. That's old. And they're not for some.
So like, and what happens directly after, right? He slaps her. What happens? He brings her a television, like a TV. What did y'all think about that? Y'all didn't think that was
That's cool.
very telling of how materialistic
I've seen
not only Anna was, but everyone in the book kind of seems to be so materialistic.
I want to say that right before that, one thing that caught my attention is how she said at the end, I've learned a lot growing up with animals. That was very telling of who she is and who she's going to become, because she's very, I would say, emotionally intelligent. Like she's got something where she perceives things a lot more than she shows because her youth. But when she said that, it was like, you know, she already put him in his place in her mind. I'm dealing with an animal. So even if he's the one that's on the attack towards me, I am superior to him. It's just that her outside force hasn't kind of joined that internal force that she's already showing by that statement. That's kind of what I perceived when she said that. Give her some kind of power.
Kind of what I perceived about it when she said it was like that. Also, like she's being trained like an animal, right? From being trained from her mother to Juan kind of showing her like from the jump. Like as soon as you get off that airplane, make sure, you know, like she made sure everything was clean. She was organizing, doing all of that. And then as soon as she messed up, it's like, you know, how you would train an animal and you would like hit them to kind of stop doing what they're doing. So like, I think he was kind of like also from the beginning setting like the president, like this is what the relationship is going to be. And we see that kind of continue to unfold with those like cycles of abuse, like the whole honeymoon stage where things are kind of going good, but then, you know, with intimate partner violence, not trying to ruffle any of the feathers either.
Yeah, Willie, I really like that. That's more how I perceived it too. Like she was being trained like an animal. So that type of behavior didn't really confuse her, right? She wasn't like, she didn't get hit and was like so confused and shocked, like, and it wasn't because she had suffered abuse before. Well, I think like she would get like, her mom would make her like kneel on rice with buckets. There's that like scene she paints.
Yeah.
Yeah, and when she set up that scene for us, it had us, you know, feeling like sympathetic and empathetic to her. Like, wow, so does she stay in the U.S. and get beat, or go home and have to face the wrath of her mom, you know?
I think there was a different type of abuse that she was getting from her mom, because that whole rice thing,
That's all.
I wasn't here last week, so I don't know what you guys talked about it, but you know, even the way her mother hit her sister, there was another type of physical abuse occurring in the home. So, and I know mothers like that mother who would just, you know, at the snap of a button would just hit you like nothing. And it may not be at the scale of a physical, like like what a male will hit you, but that still hurts. So
it knocked him out.
Yeah, and then going back to what you had mentioned, Brandon, earlier about the TV, you know, sometimes I think about it, you know, I don't know if they're being necessarily materialistic, in the sense is that when you have nothing, like you literally have nothing, and then you get something, right? So I don't know if I'm definitely not conveying it correctly, but it's just like, you know, I have relatives like when I was 8 who did not have a television, did not have a radio. There are pueblos that did not have light. So when you get something, it becomes, it's put on a pedestal because you have never had it. You know, you're looking at it through magazines, you're looking at it through TVs in the town, you're looking at it from other people, you know, like there's even parts of Honduras where certain people just have Wi-Fi and certain people don't, you're buying it. So when you don't have anything and they give you something that you've yearned for, but you don't know what it's like to have. And sometimes when you get it, you're like, oh my God, this is so great. It's met my expectations. And sometimes you're disappointed when you actually get it.
I think there's also the issue of, like, after the violence, receiving a gift, which I'm sure Juan is trying to go back to that sort of training and animal metaphor that, you know, when somebody does something, or when you're training someone or something, when they do what you want them to do, you give a gift. So he might be trying to build an equation between that violence and a gift, you know, so it almost in his mind is balancing things out, even though I think Anna sees through it. Excuse me, not Anna. What's her name? I'm sorry.
Anna.
Oh, Anna. Right. Even though Anna, I think, sees through it, Juan doesn't see through it, and Juan thinks that this is the normal way that you interact with women. And again, he's already, not to jump too far ahead, but he's already cheating. So he is not even in a committed, it could be loving, but he's not in a committed relationship.
Right. Exactly, Ron. Like that conditioning, right? Like, because, you know, and I don't know if y'all remember, but a few pages right before that, right before he gives her the television, right before he hits her, they're talking, they say they love you, or I love you, or he asked her about love for the first time. And what were they talking about? They were talking about getting a Buick, and she was like fascinated about being able to like have a car. You know what I'm saying? So it was that, and then it was the slap, and then it was a TV. You see what I'm saying? Like, there's definitely a huge connection between these transactions, right? Literal transactions, the purchase of a television, but also the purchase of a bride, you know, the purchase of her love, the love of her and her family, whatever. You know, there's a beautiful, I'm sorry, was someone?
I was just gonna say, I think that one of the ways that, excuse me, an abuser maintains control is by doing these kinds of things. And they're playing on the fact that somebody wants something so badly. So it goes back to that concept of, I never had a car. Excuse me, I'm sorry, allergies. I never had a car. I never had a TV. He's giving me all these things, so I'm gonna stay in line. I'm gonna do whatever he wants. Like, he slapped me, but he gave me this TV. So I know what the ramifications could be, but I also know that he loves me because he's getting me these things. So I'll stay on the straight and narrow so I can keep getting those things because he loves me, even though there's no way that he could in the way that she's thinking, because he does raise his hands to her.
Mm-hmm.
I also thought that it was like really sad when she talks about her conversations with her family back home, and and everybody's saying like kind of what they need. Everybody jumping on the phone to say what they need, right? And then she's like, but in between the lines, I read, I miss you, or we miss you, we miss you. And I just thought that was so sad because like words that she's kind of yearning to hear to get that emotional support, she's not getting from anybody. I mean, we get a glimpse of it with Maricela, but that's like later on, So
I caught that too. It was like unspoken, but I guess through those demands, she still got all that. I mean, they miss me, and it was unspoken, and it was sad. I couldn't explain it, but thank you.
You know what? Yeah, let's talk about that a little, because think about that, like yearning for that emotional support, or just anyone to connect with. What and like, who does she like kind of connect with in a very odd, or have some type of emotion towards?
Maricela.
Not like
Maricela.
Maricela a little bit.
Yeah, before that was Hector, I think.
Cesar.
I'm sorry, not Hector. Cesar.
Brother.
One of the
Cesar.
brothers, but it's Cesar.
Yeah,
Cesar is
Cesar.
the youngest one.
No,
Yeah.
I was thinking about Betty Shabazz when she like when that actually. Can I share my screen really quickly? I just want to show y'all some things that I pulled up.
Do you have that? Do you
Do I
have
have
that
the ability?
ability?
It was kind of that. What page was that on?
When he got shot,
Yeah, when they talk about that, I got you. Yeah, it was on page
83. You have the real book. It's on page 83.
Oh, okay.
the real book.
Like she says, what if Juan leaves me and never? What if Juan leaves the house and never comes back? Like the X's wife, Betty. Oh, cousin Betty. Shabazz left.
Oh
by
yeah.
herself. Like that's so. I don't know. There was a connection there for me. And then later on, she also talked about that scene.
Yeah, that's right.
Comes up a lot because that's where she lives. She lives in the Audubon, right above the Audubon.
Right around the Audubon, right there.
So let me show you some pictures. We can continue to talk, but I'm just going to share my screen.
That was interesting, that how the writer made the killing of Malcolm X so important to this part of the book. I don't know why I would not have expected it, but it was nice.
I was surprised. I was surprised also, and I read ahead, y'all, so I'm trying to be very mindful of the things that I say here, y'all. But
today we're discussing 68 pages, 68.
Yes, no, don't worry. I have the tabs.
Yeah, I went over too, so chill out, Libby.
I have the tabs with the dates, so I'm doing my best to make sure I don't say anything too much. But it's almost central to the story. She just doesn't bring it up. I mean, this is not a spoiler. She brings it up over and over and over. It's like this consistent reference point, this through line to the story. I'm pleasantly surprised by it, right? But I had the same reaction as you did, Ron.
Can I make an admission? I'm pleasantly surprised because I don't equate back then unity between Black and Latino people, and I would not have assumed that Latinos felt this as deep, even though they are of color. I would not have, Juan and Ana and the brothers would be considered of color. I would not have thought that by default that the Latino community felt as strongly as the Black community about this assassination of Malcolm X.
Yeah, Ryan, that was beautifully said, because there is a lot of anti-Blackness, right? She paints a lot of anti-Black things in here. So to have that kind of coupled with the thread of Malcolm X being assassinated.
Well, I think what she's doing is she's taking women, because she also compares Jackie Kennedy, I believe it's Jackie Kennedy.
Yeah.
And she's just, for that moment, she's just saying these women now don't have any husbands.
Yeah.
And Ron is right about the you know, the separation. Even though if you come to the Bronx, you wouldn't have that separation. You have unity. But I don't know what was happening in this part of Manhattan during the 60s, but it took me back. And it's like in the 60s in the Bronx, Blacks and Latinos were united. So, so it's like, you know, don't get me started, Ron. So it's like, you know, is the woman, Jackie Kennedy, being left, you know, these were women that probably maybe she didn't know the background of, but she saw them as women who were now left with children and no husband.
Without their husband.
Even though the Kennedys have money and they can take care of themselves. And the, you know, untimely death of Malcolm X was sad. And maybe she didn't know anything about, you know, their background.
Yeah, but if you're trying to establish a timeline, even though, you know, some people may not be sympathetic, think of a more shocking event to have occurred in that time frame, and it's going to stand out in your memory. It's an inflection point.
Yeah, that's it.
Well, not only that, but she was like, she said she saw her building, like on the news, like where Malcolm X was shot. She's like, is that me? So she's deeply connected to this political situation that she really, you know, knows nothing about.
And the Audubon was a place of going to dance also. The Audubon was like a club.
Yeah.
I also think that there's this you know, internalized racism and kind of like Americanism, like this white Americanism, racist Americanism that kind of Juan is trying to ingest as well. Like, oh, I'm better, no matter because they're here, you know, what everybody's saying about Blacks is like, but even though I immigrated here and all that stuff, I'm still better.
Not.
And Anna's trying to show that, you know, like she's showing empathy and showing, you know, real concern to issues that are happening that she's seeing on TV unfold.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thinking that might be a good question to ask Angie Cruz when she comes. Like, why did she put the murder of Malcolm X as a kind of string through the book?
It's the neighborhood, the hood.
Yeah, it's just interesting why the author chose to do that. Like, what impact did it have on the author? What does it mean for the author, why she chose to do that? Like, was there some kind of personal connection from her? I mean, of course, these are the kind of questions we're going to ask her.
I agree, because I feel like having it appear in the text the way it does, it to me, it's paying homage, right? It's paying homage to Malcolm X, but I also think it's juxtaposed with Juan's assertions of Black people, right? He's saying, no, I'm Dominican, and you know, these Black people, they're lazy. Like the list of people that he shares that he doesn't have high regard for include Black people, right? So I think it's very interesting that she juxtaposes this paying homage to Malcolm X alongside this other undertone of the story. I think it's very interesting. I'm curious about it. What you laughing about over there, Anna? What's going on?
I'm laughing because there's a rude awakening amongst the Latino population of this generation. And, you know, my mother was a racist. I'm not going to deny that. May she rest in peace. But there's a lot of Latinos who do not associate with the Black culture. And it's a known fact that Haiti is just as close to the Dominican Republic as it can be. But to give them credit, I say the young Dominicans who are coming here now, who are going to school and now making a connection with their Africanism is fantastic, because, you know, and maybe that's what Angie Cruz is trying to do. She's trying to bring that out because, you know, let's face it, there's, you know, like you talked about good hair, bad hair on the YouTube, you know.
And what Sarada put in the chat, anti-Blackness is rampant everywhere. I agree. I mean, you mentioned Haiti. I mean, it was the biggest, you know, I'm Haitian American. I was born here. My parents were born in Haiti.
Yeah.
It was the biggest insult for them to call me an American, right? Like, so even Black Haitians against Black Americans, right? Like, you
Yeah,
know,
that's true.
Black Americans are lazy, Haitians are the hardest working.
Yeah.
And I mean, can you imagine my complex, right? Like really,
Yeah,
you know,
you
can you
messed up,
imagine my
Lydia.
complex?
That's all of us. That's all of us.
Right, absolutely. It's so complicated, but yeah, anti-Blackness is everywhere, even amongst Black people, right?
Oh yes.
And so interesting, Lydia, you say that because you talk about DR sharing, they share an island with Haiti.
Right.
Yeah,
And I said it can't get
it's
any
very minor.
closer. It's Hispaniola. Like,
I think once a week they exchange. They come over to each other's side.
Oh, that's a great idea.
I believe that's what they do. But, you know, it's a long road, but, you know, it's not as bad as what's going on with cops with guns.
Yeah, it's like to be anti-Black American really is just
It's all shitty.
like an allegiance.
well
Bottom
said,
line.
Willie.
Bottom
Well
line.
said. That's the bottom line. Like, we
Nicely.
can't flower it up. Like, that's what it is.
Shitty,
Right.
shitty, bang, bang.
There's like a beautiful, my favorite
Funny.
line out of all of this book is on, it's super short, it's on page 97 when Ana calls herself Ana X. That
Yeah.
Well, because she's, you know, she don't even know what that X stands for, probably. So we'll have to ask Angie.
This, I mean, I haven't really gone too far in the book. And obviously the book is written in English. But but you know, she's newly arrived in the US. She don't speak no English. Like, like
Yeah.
I'm just thinking, I mean, just, you know, there's phrases here and there.
Yeah.
Half the time, like to this day, and I was born in the States, there are times that I know certain words in Spanish.
Yep.
And I break my head to try to remember how to say it in English.
Yeah, it's so interesting, Myra, that you should say that, because I felt the same way. Like, I would have expected a little more Spanish peppered through. Particularly, she makes some, she uses some saying that only makes sense in Spanish. And I question, like, why didn't she say that in Spanish? And
Not
let
even
the
in
reader,
Spanish.
like, saying, I was like, oh, it doesn't even make any sense.
Yeah.
That's definitely a question I would have for her.
But you,
go ahead.
No, something that struck me really early on in the book when Juan arrives in New York City, he's talking to the guy who's going to rent him a room, and he's talking about the little bit of English he knows, and then the guy says, "Got a girl back home?" And he says, "Oh shit, you speak Spanish."
Yeah,
so even though it's written in English, I think we're supposed to interpret it as you're speaking Spanish the whole time.
Yeah, I noticed that as well.
I kind of appreciated that though, because my Spanish is terrible. So.
But you know what? I'm not even Spanish speaking, and I was even trying. I'm like, wait, I know the story is being told in English, but I know she's not speaking in English. You know, I too wanted to hear some more Spanish, and I'm not even Spanish speaking, y'all. So I understand that. I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm with you.
Just out of curiosity, because again, I haven't read that far in, I wanted to see if there was any Spanish person who died in 1965. And the only person he was Dominican, well, famous person, Porfirio something. And he was like a playboy, because every time, he was a playboy, he married.
One of the Kennedys, I think?
Yes.
He was married to Trujillo's daughter.
Yeah.
That's
Oh, God.
Rubirosa.
Yes, the famous Latino, Hispanic, whatever you want to call it.
Yes, I'll put it in the chat, his name. Porfirio Rubirosa.
Exactly. So there's that reference, right, that she could have used and didn't use. Because to this day, my mother is always like, that she remembers when Pedro Infante died. And that's 1957. I had to look it up. But like, there's other things that, you know, she went with Malcolm X as opposed to.
Well, it sparked a discussion. If she would have put Porfirio, what's his name?
Rubirosa.
Porfirio Rubirosa, we would have been like, next.
Porfi who?
Serious. Maybe not you, Jacqueline, pero.
Yeah, but it's also a question of, physical proximity versus cultural proximity.
Absolutely.
Malcolm X was right there and you felt that
Yeah.
explosion. So.
And also the perspective of the immigrant, like this is going on into a land that you just came into, and it's happening sort of in front of your face. So like, as I think you mentioned before, Jetta, that leaves an impression in your mind. But I also noticed in the same page as she's talking about the event while it's happening, her brother-in-law is lamenting that the party's going to be canceled.
Yeah.
Like, that's the big thing. He's like, oh no, you know how much I waited for this ticket, and blah, blah. And I'm like, what? And she said it. Right? She's like, don't you care? Someone might be dead. Like and that's speaks to the I think the immigrant experience.
No, the party guy.
Yeah, well, if you're like in your world, and that's how he connects to it. Like, who cares? It's not me. He's
a hardworking guy, so he wants to party hardy.
He definitely does. But she's touched by it. She's bothered by it. But he's just like, don't hear. Like, he's being indifferent and very, very indifferent. And it's like, I think it's that complexity of not connecting to the community. Like,
And do they see it in the TV, the news, where she's saying, oh, look at the news there goes my window. Is that from the TV? Or?
Yeah, from the news. I think that she sees
she put the TV to use.
I think that's when she found out who was the name of the person who was killed, the whole story. She's learning it through the news.
I was also thinking just now that there's a lot about the politics going on in the Dominican Republic, and that's when the United States invaded the Dominican Republic. And so I was thinking, like, it's interesting, like, that she places the whole book in this period. Like, it starts in 1965.
Yeah, that's true.
And I think she comes like in December or January, and then, she's there till April. And this is all happening. Malcolm X got killed. Was it April 19th or something? Yeah. And so this is all, like when we're trying to figure out, well, why Malcolm X? And then I'm thinking well, maybe it's also because of the historical moment that she chose to write the book in, and this juxtaposition between the politics going on in Santo Domingo and the politics going on in New York, which was very political. I mean, there was almost a coup there. There would have been a coup if the United States didn't step in and occupy the Dominican Republic. That's pretty heavy. That's pretty heavy that the United States did that.
But she gave if you listen to the story, she mentioned early on when she talked about the conquistadors and then the gringos, how they came.
Yes.
And I think that was an issue. She talks about that, the history of the Dominican Republic.
Yeah, and that was the second time the United States invaded. The United States invaded in 1916 as well, and stayed for like 30 years or something.
Yeah, so, but she's saying that if you listen to the story, she doesn't say like if the United States was a savior. It's the same thing with the conquistadors.
Not at all. Not at all.
When she's using the Audubon Ballroom, she's using that as a backdrop, not just to show historically, but she's also showing the Dominican experience where they don't really understand the history of Black people or the history in America. So the individuals, they're there. This is a historical event happening, but they're clueless. So they don't really know what's going on. They don't understand what's happening. And that happens on, it goes on. And she also points out the correlation between the Cubans, because Washington Heights was actually dominated by Cubans before the Dominicans came. So she's given a historical backdrop. It's all relevant to the story, and it makes a lot of sense. So I get what she's saying, and I think she did a pretty good job at it. And she talks about when I came on, you was talking about the racial aspect and with the Dominicans, and I think the young lady was saying, but she's Haitian, and I said that's a hell of a conflict that goes on within that island in itself. Like, one of the first things that individuals that come to America, whether Dominican or Colombian, it's for some reason, I think Malcolm X spoke about this before, one of the first things they tell you, do not associate yourself with Black people in America if you want to move up. And so that's the psychology when they come into America, and it's still like that to this day. And she points that out in the book. So I think it's very relevant.
Cool.
In addition to that, wasn't there a scene where, thank you for that, Messiah, that was very beautifully said, and I 100% agree with you. I actually don't think it's that even big of a reach to get, right, why she's talking about Malcolm X so much, not only on a racial level, like Messiah is talking about with the ignorance between like Black Spanish immigrants that come here and Black American politics, but also like she literally, like y'all realize it happened literally where she was living at. She could look down and see it. So I think that also like makes a lot of sense why she would do that. And that's a big part of the story. But like furthermore, I mean, she tries to run away, right? She tries to run away, and the whole time I'm thinking she's just flexing, but she really does get to the train station. I'm like, she's really going to do this, you know? And then we find out that she is pregnant. And then Cesar says something like, oh, great, you're gonna have an American baby, like a blue-blooded baby or something like that. Like he's so excited that now she's gonna have this American baby. And I even think he says baby boy. He doesn't know it's a boy or not, but like, that's so interesting to me, that kind of desire, desperation even to like have some type of connection to Americans. So I wondered why, I thought about that a lot. What did y'all think about that? Finding out she was pregnant, but then also her running away, finding out she's pregnant, coming back, like that was really significant to me. You know, that really stood out to me.
Well, I think it's part of it's about being an American citizen. That baby's going to be an American citizen. And that's really important in the, you know, in the immigrant community, the immigrant experience, you know, to be pregnant and cross the border and give birth in America and give birth in the United States, it's a game changer to have a child that's a US citizen. Because off of that child being a US citizen, that child can bring the rest of the family in.
Exactly. It establishes a bond, like a political bond.
Legally. That child is the entrance for the rest of the family to come in, because the child then is the American citizen that can sponsor. I mean, I know people whose children, you know, are 11 years old, but they're the ones who wound up sponsoring the other family members who were able to come in. So that's also, why I think it's so like, wow, you're having this baby and it's in America that you're having it. It's a game changer.
Yeah. That's why Trump had them caged up.
Exactly.
It also gives her a sense of security too.
Oh yeah, we don't really get into the immigration status. I'm gonna assume that everything's A-okay, but I have a friend who is.
Don't do that.
No, I have a friend whose family's Dominican, and he was just like, I guess there was a point in the U.S. that if you had a child who was born in the U.S. before 1976, it gave you residencia, right? So like if you were here on a tourist visa and your visa had expired or was about to expire and you had a child in the U.S. at that time, that child automatically gave you residency. I just happened to be born after the fact, but
okay.
They got that residencia, don't get me wrong, but I did not know that. And I had no idea. He was like, my sister was born in 75, 74, and his parents came from DR with a tourism visa. I think it got expired, but because she was born and she's the oldest, it gave them residencia.
That's it.
You know, automatically. That doesn't happen anymore. But back then, so for all we know, that could have been a factor.
But she doesn't care though. So she's pregnant, and she's still trying to leave the country.
Exactly.
I mean, this is 15 years old, man.
This is everything that she's, or her family has plotted towards her coming to America and then establishing herself and bringing the balance of the family over.
Yeah.
But she's pregnant. This is like the key moment, and she still wants to go back to the Dominican Republic.
Yeah,
that's when Cesar catches her.
But didn't she find out that she was pregnant after didn't she find out she was pregnant after she fainted at the bus station?
No.
Like when she went to leave to get on the bus to try to get to the airport, that whole
She
thing.
did, yeah, she
I don't
didn't know
think
she
she
was
knew.
pregnant. No.
I think
But
when Cesar met her,
Oh,
bumped
I
into
thought
her.
she tells Cesar, when Cesar is trying to bring her back, I thought she tells
No, she
Cesar.
faints.
No,
She faints.
No,
And then
yeah,
they
she
take her to the
passed out.
hospital.
And he
Yeah.
took her to the hospital
And then
to
the
the children's
doctor tells her
hospital.
she's pregnant.
Okay. But Cesar finds out before Juan.
Yes,
yeah,
because
yeah,
he was there.
definitely.
He was there at the
He
hospital.
was with her
Okay.
when she
Right.
finds out.
I think she's mentally still not really wanting to stay in the U.S.
Yeah.
even after pregnancy.
Yeah.
I mean, she's still saying, I want to leave. I want to go back home.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I don't think, I mean, you're right. I mean, she does find out and then she comes back like after she fainted. But I think mentally she's still not in that comfortable place that I'm staying in New York.
Mm-hmm.
But she's going through all this stuff from what I'm hearing. But to be honest, I don't think she's unlike a lot of people who come to the States and they come here and they're so disappointed and want to go home.
Oh, yeah.
But she's just and the difference is that she's literally a child who was forced to grow up rather quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I
Yeah,
mean,
and all these experiences that have brought her that you would think are pleasurable, right? Like even the whole orgasm experience, like you would think that it's pleasurable. Finding out that you're having a child is pleasurable, and it's just like continually dampered. You know, I thought that orgasm scene was like very important because it's like in a moment where she's like in tune with her body, like supposed to be really enjoying herself, and then he says someone else's name, and it's like
Yeah,
fuck
it
all
was
up.
traumatic. It was traumatic.
That wasn't enjoyable at all.
It wasn't enjoyable. An orgasm
It
is
was.
totally involuntary.
Thank you.
It's an involuntary response.
He was
So you
being
can be
raped.
raped, and it was rape.
Raped.
You can be raped and still orgasm.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
It was definitely an assault on her body. Like she didn't consent to that. And rape definitely does happen between spouses.
Absolutely.
That was not a pleasurable moment, and it just happened. Orgasms just happen.
Yep.
Yeah. Juan was sleeping with the woman who was basically his manager, sort of, at a hotel. But not only are they sleeping together, but she's married, to my understanding, and now he's married. And then we get that letter that Ana finds, like totally dissing her. I don't even think he spells her full name, and it's only 3 letters. You know, he calls her A, right? And it's like, you know, there was something very telling to me about Juan in that moment that was even more telling to me than when he was like raising his hands to her. Do you know what I'm saying? And that writing a letter, a sweet romantic letter to your mistress, there's something I don't know, there's a special place.
So what's he doing with the letter?
What's he doing with it?
Yeah, didn't he give it to her? I mean,
No,
when
he
he's
didn't.
writing,
Because no.
I know she finds it, but why is he writing a letter? He's not going to give it to his mistress.
I think that was his intention, but she found it and took it and read it. So he left the house without it. But
right.
But what do y'all think about that? Like, you know, think of that gesture of writing someone a letter, like a love letter.
Yeah,
you know, like I don't even think he'd ever did that.
I don't think that really happened, but having somebody on the side all the time, but to write about it, I don't think so.
To write to her about it, you know? But,
well, yeah.
I think it alludes to probably a very different relationship that he has with that woman. Was it Carrie Dodd? Is that who he writes to?
Right.
Which, you know, we don't know anything about her, I guess. I'm literally reading it as all of you are talking, so I'm trying to catch up here.
Okay.
As far as we know, she's an adult woman, closer in age to him. So think of the fact that this is probably someone who he cannot control the way he controls Anna. You know, the use of violence and all this other stuff to contain her. And now, you know, pregnancy, which is now acting as a trap for Anna in this case. And this woman, Carrie Dad, is probably, like I said, a grown woman who's not going to be as easily manipulated in this case. So that's so whether he truly loves her, it's very possible. But someone who's an abuser, you know, if you read Bell Hooks, love and abuse can't coexist. You know, whether he's doing that with her is probably pretty unlikely if we had to guess, but we don't know.
And she was the boss, right? That he was trying to, that he kind of like idolized in the beginning. Like he was telling her like he was gonna get her, and they were like clowning him, telling him, "Oh, what she want with a Dominican," and then he ends up like getting her.
It was like a challenge to him.
Yeah, it definitely was. So I thought that was interesting.
He really doesn't get her.
Well,
I agree with Greg.
Of the time when it comes to letters, right? I think, today we take for granted that we're constantly texting, but I mean, in the 80s, people were still writing letters, right? We were still like being forced to know how to write a letter. And that's how people communicated, like those whatever blue, white, and red envelopes back in the day.
International airmail.
Par avion. Par avion.
Par avion.
I'm saying, writing a letter, I don't really think it was like in the grand, he's writing to his mistress, but really in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it was.
It's not that weird. I don't think so either. I agree with you. Maria.
Yeah, that's not what I was saying. No, that's not what I said though. What I said was think about what I said.
I said that.
I recognize it. No, I recognize it. I'm just thinking about the setting.
Right, but that's not really what I was talking about. What I was talking about. I know. It's like not literally writing somebody, but think of how busy this man is. She even says he's the hardest working man that she's ever met. You know what I'm saying? Think about that, taking the time out to write a romantic letter,
right.
Not only to a married woman, but to like a married woman you're sleeping with and you have a wife. And there's so much so a secret that she won't even write out her full name.
Pajarita.
Yeah, but at the end of the day, like you're gonna do what you want to do, right? So I don't even think that's, even if you're that busy, you're gonna make time for things that you want to do. So whether it's writing a letter or sneaking around, I mean, so like, I understand what you were saying. My context wasn't to take it out from that, but I think nonetheless, people are going to do what they want to do, right? If people are going to cheat or write a letter, they're going to find a way to do it.
Do you think Anna is jealous of that? Do you think she's really jealous?
No.
I think it kind of entertains her.
Yeah, right?
Me too.
Like she's playing detective, finding clues, and it's giving her something to do as well, besides cleaning.
Who said that? Is that really?
That's all she does.
That's true.
But I think what Madeline said in the chat was really important, that Anna is to have children. Like that marriage, like to what Brandon keeps saying, is the transaction, where caridad is the passion for him. So I think that what Madeline said was excellent in the chat, because then that's what he's going to want to do. That's what's going to entertain him. That whole fantasy.
Yeah, it's a different dynamic. Their relationship is completely different. He even said, Anna, like he's there to support her, to take care of her. Like that's draining for a man, right? Like he's like, okay, I have to do this. Whereas with Caridad, she's just like, she's just a dime. I'm just like, I'm going all the way with her. She's gonna give me a hard time. I love this. Like I'm not gonna, like, at home, he's not getting a hard time. He's like, oh, okay, I have to pamper her, I have to do this, I have to do this, I have to. Whereas with Caridad, he wants to.
At home, he has a girl, and with Caridad, he has a woman.
Exactly. Well put.
Yeah, and he won't even get Anna what the basic necessities like lotion. She says she's rubbing cooking oil because she doesn't even have any lotion.
He doesn't care. He doesn't care. Like he's gonna do the bare minimum for her. That's it. The bare minimum. And Caridad has like all of this luxurious stuff. He's like, yeah, that's what I want. I think Anna said it correctly. She's a woman, and at home he had a little girl.
She's a married woman too.
Yeah,
that's
he knows what she wants.
Doesn't that go back to the whole transactional nature of the relationship? Because if you're thinking about Anna as his wife, that's a commodity. That's not a luxury for him. That's not something that makes him happy.
No.
He's got to find that outside of home. He doesn't want a commodity. He wants what he thinks of as passion. And that's kind of the cliche with a lot of men, rich men especially, who cheat. And even though he's not rich, but it's that same idea, like, this is the wife that I have to pay for, but this is the woman who I'm passionate about. And that makes the difference.
Why even bother?
Because you can't get the whole package in one woman.
True.
So are you giving him an out, Barbara?
No, I'm not giving him an out. I'm just kind of seeing it for what he's really doing.
He wants
like
his
that's
cake.
what he's doing. He doesn't have an out. I mean, he doesn't care about Ana. I mean, when you guys were talking earlier about him slapping her, and I think Jacqueline said she was surprised that it happened that soon. In my mind, and then the whole TV thing. I mean, really, that's just an abusive behavior. A man will hit you, he'll do all of this stuff, and then tomorrow or an hour later, he's giving you all of these jewels. That is a typical abusive relationship. That's it.
And he does that twice, doesn't he?
Oh, there's no Me Too then.
Yeah, but it was abusive before they even started, right? She's 11 years old when he begins courting her.
Yeah.
That's a sucio. I'm sorry.
A sucio.
Right, but
there's a perfect word in Spanish that in English doesn't, like dirty. He is a sucio.
He's a sucio. Un sinvergüenza.
11-year-old. So that abuse.
But you know what, Myra? He does that because that was accepted and that was allowed through her family. So I agree with you 100% about that, like what he is. However, because it was allowed and accepted, he did it. I think that's probably what happened.
And to piggyback off what you said, when they did the TV show, when they was playing I Love Lucy, she was referring to I Love Lucy. Yeah. And it's funny because that was actually an abusive relationship. And she says it when Desi goes after Lucy and she hides behind the neighbors and he acts like he's gonna hit her. That shows abuse. That's domestic violence going on. It's accepted. And she's showing that these things are accepted. We look at it now, it's like, wow, this is abuse. But these things were accepted.
It's normalized, yeah.
Yeah, we looking at it through the eyes of someone that, the 21st century. But you can look at it 50 years ago, 60 years ago. These things were accepted, not even talked about. People didn't go to the police and say, oh, my husband's beating up on me or whatever. These things just didn't happen.
And they would say, what did you do wrong?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, even right now, when you look at the relationship, even if they're legally married, which they're not legally married, but that's domestic rape. Today, a person could go to jail for domestic rape.
It is rape.
There's no Me Too.
But back then, you couldn't go to jail because of it, because it's your wife. So she's highlighting all these, but everything is coming from a historical context. And I understand, like, these things, like, a lot of people are like, wow, that's messed up. But you got to look at it through the eyes of that time period. And she's, like, actually giving you a history lesson of what's going on, what was going on with the Dominicans at that time.
In the 60s, también.
Yeah.
Not just Dominicans, but Americans too, like everywhere. Like that was in the West at least, that was the idea that women do not have the right to
but
really.
Like, really quick.
Where do you think that saying came from? Keep them pregnant in slippers. What was the other?
Barefoot and
What
pregnant.
Barbara was talking about earlier.
Barefoot and pregnant.
What Barbara was talking about earlier, though, is that was accepted by the family, not only by Ana's family, but like later on in the book, when she tries to run away, like even Cesar says like, oh, he can be an asshole, but he's actually a really good guy. It's like, how is he a really good guy? He literally
He's gonna defend his brother. Come on.
So I think what Barbara was saying earlier, like about how it's accepted and supported, right? Yeah. So between what Barbara and Lasai are saying, like these things are not only historical, but they were supported and protected by the families, right? So I think that's, Barbara, I just really like that point that you made about this being abuse, yes, but also it being very much weaved into the families.
Mm-hmm.
It's accepted. I think it's accepted because it's viewed in a different way. I mean, in the chat, the connection to marriage to Anna's is to have children, carry that as passion. I also saw the marriage to Anna as a form of obligation, right? And I feel like Juan is known to be like this upstanding, person who's paving a way from, and there's almost honor in his name, right? Like, and so I feel as if him taking care of Anna is a form of him bringing honor to his name, right? Like his family, like he has this land in Dominican Republic. And I mean, he kept on, or he said at some point to Anna, if anything happened to you, I don't know what I would do. I think it's connected to his own honor. Like, he wouldn't be able to face the family back in Dominican Republic and say, man, I let something happen to your daughter, right? So it's this sense of obligation. I have obligation to this family to take care of Anna, so that, you know, it adds to my reputation as a person, right? So I think that's another reason why it's accepted. It's this pathway to success, right? It's this greater good, unfortunately, that why in terms it's accepted, I think. So I feel like there's a connection to obligation there as well.
For better or worse.
But he chose a traditional, he chose a traditional woman. Like, he said when he first was in New York that the American women are too complicated, right? You have to date them and they challenge you and court them and all of that stuff. So he actively went back to DR for a quote unquote more traditional woman. So I don't know if it's, like, for me, his motivation is not so much, you know, I just want a woman, you know, it's his motivation is, I need a woman that I can control, basically.
Correct. Yeah.
It's not about like, I want to be with someone. It's, I need someone who is not going to be on equal footing with me and that I can control the relationship. So I think that's distinct, because when he had the opportunity to be with someone, anyone in the United States, he chose not to be. He said, I'm going back to DR to find myself a real woman, right? A more traditional woman, a woman that's not going to challenge me, a woman that I don't necessarily have to court, but I could just take.
You know, Anna made a statement that was, you make your bed hard, you have to lay in it. I remember when I was growing up, there was a family and the husband was very abusive to the mother. He used to beat the crap out of her. And then one of the daughters ended up in an abusive relationship. And she went to her mom and was letting her mom know, you know, this guy's like beating on me, my husband's beating on me, you know, and her mother told her the same thing Anna said, you made your bed hard, you lay in it. You can't leave him. Like, most people would say leave, but the mother was like, nope, that's your husband and you stand by your man. Even though he's beating your brains out, you stand by your man. And I could never understand how a mom could give that type of advice to her daughter, stay with a person that's beating you up. But some families were like that.
It's almost cultural.
By any necessary, right.
I was just gonna say, Simone, if you want to finish up, go ahead, and then Ms. Sherry, if you want to chime in after Simone.
No, I'm good. I'm done.
Just to me, he's trying to make himself appear big. You know, he goes back to the DR and he's talking about America, but really he's like a little peon in America. He has really nothing to offer. He's chasing his dreams. So I would say, you know, he went back to the DR to get Anna because that's his one way of feeling like a star, feeling like he's someone, you know, where they're gonna be going, oh, he's awesome. You know, really he's not. He's in America living in, I don't know about that area. I can't say what the area that was, but struggling, it sounds like to me.
But can we also speak about Anna's mom when she finds out that Anna is pregnant?
Oh, wait a minute.
I don't think we got to that part.
You went too far, Ron.
You didn't get to that part yet, Ron. You ruined your own thing, Ron.
Go do your taxes, Ron. Ron, go do your taxes, man.
Sorry.
Good night.
Never mind. That doesn't happen.
Never mind.
But piggybacking off of Ron with the girl's mother, and I think, I don't know if everybody caught it, but somebody said it in the chat, which was very relevant. The mother doesn't really, the only thing the mother is concerned about is her daughter being a seed for to bring everybody else over and to help the family back in DR. Their family is just, that relationship is based off of benefiting both families. His family is trying to get the land from her family. Her family is concerned about her going to America to benefit the family in DR. So that's an arranged relationship. They're not even married legally. You know, they came to America illegal. Everything is in the backdrop of that. So, and he feels an obligation because he committed himself to looking after her. And it just so happened they living together and the relationship becomes sexual and abusive, but he doesn't want to be with her. His family wants him to be with her because of the land. So that's, you know, and I think we spoke about it in whatever book that was, the difference between someone wanting to do something, something becoming an obligation, it becomes a burden. And I think he's lashing out and because of the burden of having to take care of her. He doesn't want to be with her. He wants to be with this woman that he met at the hotel. But because of the family obligation, he has to look after her. You know, and then her mother is telling her, you have to be there because you got to do good for the family. Her mother, like, it's not, I'm not saying her mother doesn't care about her, but her mother is thinking about the family. You know, so, and that's why she goes, you got to do good. You got to, you know, do all these things and make sure you save money, make sure you send money back. You know, it's not about going there, doing good, raising the family, and then once you do good, you bring the family over. It's about taking care of the family, both of them. So, and I think it's frustrating for both of them.
Yeah, we talked about that a lot last week too, about how if what the mom kind of was doing with that, with what you just described, like if my point was that, like, isn't that what you're supposed to do with your children? Aren't you supposed to guide them? Aren't you supposed to put them in a position so they can not only better themselves, but the rest? Isn't that what a mom is supposed to do? But, you know, raise her child in the best way that she knows how?
Not every mother does that. Because you have to understand the mother's situation too. And what everybody is saying, somebody has to gain something from somebody else. So the mother is giving her advice. Unfortunately, it's not the advice that, you know, we would give our daughters. But at that time, remember, we're talking about a time where they're struggling. And, you know, I'm not saying it's right, but and I wouldn't do that to my daughter, but we do it in a way that is significant for everybody else. Because, you know, it's a family. It's about the family. So.
But every parent wants their children to do better than them. And the natural instinct of children, when a child makes it, most children go back and help their family by sending money, buying things for their parents, or whatever the case may be. But you're right, not every child and not every mom, but I know 99.9% of parents do want their children to do better. They don't want their children to go down the same road that they went down. And they do want their children to help if they can.
Madeline, you had something to say?
Yeah, I also think it's important to remember that back then there was no such thing as a professional woman, or at least it was not well known, especially in DR. There was no such thing as I'm going to leave my husband and I am going to, you know, own this home by myself and work and pay for everything by myself. So Ana was depending on him, on Juan, to support her and pay for everything because that's what she was supposed to do. So her mom was like, no, you can't leave, because then who's going to take care of you? She couldn't take care of herself because that's not how we do it.
And she also uses the tools that her mother taught her, right? Like flirting a little bit with that guy by, you know, what was his name, Antonio, with like the suit hemming and all of that, you know? So she's using a little bit of the skills that her mom gave her, you know, to get some extra money so that way she can send it back. So that way, you know, I go back to that quote where she says, pretending. If I pretend enough, maybe it'll all feel real. So it's like, you know, and she wants to make that look real to her family as well. She wants to sell them that dream as well, that she's okay. So that's why I kind of knew that even though she was like planning to like have this like great escape to JFK and all that, I was like, it's really not going to happen because she's not going to show up there and be like, I'm miserable.
Yeah, because it was never really about her not being miserable. I don't, you know what I'm saying? It was never really about her
Yeah,
happiness.
it's not about what she wants at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah. And I hear that argument, but I also still, even with understanding and agreeing with that, I still see that the mother was doing the best that she could with what she had. And this, if all I can teach you is like how to keep the house clean and how to cook and how to flirt a little bit to get a couple extra dollars, then that's precisely what I will be teaching you. You see what I'm saying? She couldn't teach her English or mathematics. She was teaching her what she knew so she could get to a better position. Plus, she had those green eyes, you know, and that was really it. That was really the ticket, you know. So that was really going to be, if you remember at the beginning, those green eyes were going to take it out for all of them. So, yeah, Sherry, I think you're right. She definitely acted out of desperation, but I don't know. Does anyone else agree with me that the mom was doing exactly what she's supposed to be doing?
I agree with you,
I agree. Yeah, that's exactly what I thought last week when you were talking. I mean, I understand what Anna's saying about like guiding your children, not wanting your daughter to, you know, give her that advice, but we are in 19 whatever. I think Madeline had said they don't know any better, and the women weren't built that way, right? They weren't built to say, okay, I'm going to just go and do my own thing. I don't need this husband or this guy, and I'm going to go buy a house and do whatever I need to do on my own with my children or without children. But I think that her mom was utilizing the tools, the only tools that she had available to her. She was also in DR and didn't know, maybe she wasn't probably educated. We don't know the level of education that she had, but she knew the ins and outs of a relationship, right? Like she even said, like men don't even know what they're thinking unless you tell them what they're thinking, something to that effect. I mean, with every single thing that she says, and I love her, like her whole analogy in this part where she says, are you a manatee or are you a shark? I mean, like what parent, mom, like she just says that. And in my mind, I'm like, wow. When she said that, I'm like, she's not my mother, but shoot, I'd want to be the shark. I wouldn't want to be the manatee. So, you know, every time she like thinks about that, I was thinking, wow, I mean, it's not the greatest advice, but it's the only advice she knows how to provide her daughter. So she's just saying, hey, you know what? You do this. If you have to clip his nails and do all of this nonsense, you do that because that's how you keep a man. And then you get all his money. And then now you bring it back home and hook up the whole entire family. And this is how we're going to work it out. And who knows, when she comes back from DR, she's probably thinking, okay, now you could leave him. Now we got all this. You brought up our family. Now leave him. Because he's not in DR. He's this big king, right? And then in New York, he's nothing. So he has to put his hands on me in order to feel bigger than what he is. But to let him try that with Caridad, he'd probably be underneath that restaurant or that whatever hotel thing that he was in.
Right.
Anyway, that's my 2 cents. Sorry, guys.
Fascinating.
I mean, Teresa is in the same household, right? Raised by the same mother, but yet she is completely defiant.
Right.
She really just, you know, all of the mother's teachings basically just roll off of her like bathwater. Like she's not taking any of it.
She's home with a baby. What do you mean she's not taking it?
She's not taking any of it. She went and
taking
found
all of it.
Her own lover, right?
Yeah, right.
She found the I don't know, I forget his name, but she found her own lover. She was like,
the Guardia.
Marriage is, you can't prioritize marriage over sex. She was like, sex is great. I mean, she is basically being her own person and even tries to talk her sister out of marrying Juan multiple times. She's really not having it. Like, you know, despite her mother's teachings, despite her mother's influences, she's really setting out to be her own person. And it's just interesting having those two people be brought up in the same household by the same parent, but you know, are completely going in different directions.
Right, Sarada, I agree with you. But when you say this, when you agree with me, Sarada, when I say that even with that, these two girls being brought up in the same house by the same woman, when you say that that Issa got what mom used to be, right? Teresa, she is her mother in a sense. Like she marries the guy or gets with the guy that her mom doesn't want her to get with, which her mama did too with Papa. So Teresa is kind of like mama back in the day, whereas Ana is getting the knowledge of her mom as a woman in 2020, right? Or in hindsight. So like, do you see what I'm saying? Like Teresa is more of her mother, just who her spirit was as a young woman, whereas Ana gets to have that more womanly advice that now that mama has maybe picked the wrong man, you know.
She says that too. You know, she says how much alike they are, and she also says like Teresa has lost hope because she's already opened her legs. I mean that's the phrase. It kind of translates into that. You already opened your legs, so you're not valuable. In other words, like you're not gonna be valuable to me. So therefore,
Sorry, I keep interrupting you. Sorry.
No, go ahead, Sarah, go ahead.
But I think even before she got pregnant, right? Ana was like recalling the Jacqueline Kennedy and Kennedy getting shot, and how Jackie O was like imparting knowledge about what it means to be a woman, what it means to be a woman mourning. And that you should prioritize your man in your marriage over yourself. And even at that point, Teresa was like, that makes no sense. You know, she was very defiant even before she met, what's his name? So I think that maybe there is some, you know, inkling, right? There might be some connection between her and her mom's past, maybe. But I think Teresa is already, she's, you know, it seems like from a very early age, she's already set out to be her own person, despite, you know, societal expectations of who she's supposed to be and what she's supposed to be as a woman.
But she's also still relying on Ana too, right? To send her things back or to send money back as well. So it's not like she wants Ana to be like all autonomous in US either. She's like, remember, bring the money back.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, she still want that money.
You know, one thing I think that the author does very well is her descriptions of, even though there's no like dialogue quotes, I think that the writer really puts the internal thoughts like on the page of Ana, like navigating right through this really horrible relationship in a really deeper sense than what's literally on the page, but kind of flip-flopping from, like we were talking about earlier, being smacked and then getting a gift, or when you're kind of going through these pages and there are highs and lows in the relationship, right? And you're right there with her, and we're so in her head. I think that, but we never get too lost, right? It's never too much of her internal thought, but we still get the highs, the lows, the very rockiness, the longing, the loneliness in this relationship. I just wanted to say that I think the author does such a great job of really pulling on our emotional strings without a bunch of hyped up scenes and a bunch of very heavy words. Yes, Ms. Sherry?
I felt a lot of foreshadowing as well, like when she was tailoring some clothes for Antonio, I think is his name. To me, it's like flirtatious types of behaviors. You know, she rushed to do her hair, put on lipstick, and wanted to make certain that she was looking nicely, and gave him a glass of water, and he's like, are you always like this with men? I think all throughout, and also with Gabrielle, it's like some flirtatious types of behaviors with her. So I don't know how afraid she was of her husband, Juan, and if she was seeking more a passionate love for herself or relationship or friendship for herself. But
Jerry, she's still a woman though, right? Like she's still a girl.
right. She's
a little girl, 15 years old.
Yeah, you're right, Miss Sherry. I guess I didn't think about that, but think about the way she ate those chocolates that Antonio gave her. It was very sexual. It was very sensual, the way and then she saved them for later, hidden in the back like a secret.
Did you ever eat those cherry candies? They got a lot of syrup inside. Nothing sexual about that.
I
I'm
thought he
messing
was
with
gonna
you,
come
Brandon.
back for the bag, and she fucked up them chocolate.
No, I don't think he gave them to her. I just
That's
took
what she
them. I
had,
don't
the
know. I got
chocolate.
confused with that scene. Did he leave them for her, or did he just leave them?
We don't know. We don't know. Because
So-
she questioned that. Anna questioned that. She said, wait, did he forget these or were they for me? Like, I'm not sure.
Very interesting.
He forgot the bang.
He forgot, right?
He forgot the
That was
bang.
for his wife that does his tailoring.
Mhm.
So he's gonna be in trouble.
And wasn't Cesar a little
But
bit?
she didn't do it though, right?
She ate the chocolates.
She knows what to do.
She ate the chocolates, like not even like, I'm sorry,
I
Miss
know.
Sherry.
Wasn't
It's
Cesar
kind of like what Miss Sherry was saying, like, listen, she's still a woman, girl. You know, she's like, I know how to get this. I'm going to eat the chocolate. I'll entice this man. I'm taking his chocolate. That's it. He doesn't want me to fix his pants or whatever it was, but I'm eating the chocolate.
We also have to remember that she's not a woman.
No, she's not, but she's still a woman at heart.
She's
She knows
learning
what
to
she's
be a
doing.
woman.
Thank
She's
you.
learning to be a woman. She's not a
learning.
woman. She's a
She
girl.
knows what
man.
she's doing. She's
She's
a
getting
little
Didn't that guy
raped.
say? Didn't the
She's
guy
getting
say that
raped
his
left
wife
and
said?
right. She better get up there.
Hormones.
Shoot.
Didn't the guy say that his wife don't let nobody touch his pants?
That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But
So
he
that
didn't
was
say-
pretty.
He didn't say nothing about his chocolates.
Let him, you don't let them touch your pants, but let them eat your chocolate.
But I don't think he knew about that as being sexual. He just looks at it.
I know,
you
he wasn't there.
Being naive, yeah.
He wasn't there when she was eating the chocolates. He
Oh,
left.
okay.
Didn't he leave?
But he left the chocolate?
He left behind. He left it behind.
Why?
Anyway, he forgot.
He forgot it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And she noticed.
She's like, what page is that?
What page? Right. What page is that?
And he left the chocolates behind also with makeup too, right?
With makeup?
Yeah,
With
like
stuff,
in the bag.
yeah, for his
With
wife.
the pink.
Lotion or something.
What page is that?
Let's
I
go
don't-
to the
I don't
page.
remember that.
Let's go to the page.
I don't remember.
We're changing the story, Angie's story. We're taking too much liberties here.
Oh, it's on page 86.
Oh, we went back? Come on now.
85,
My wife
86 is
is
when.
making-
82, 84, 85. Oh, yeah, okay. What about that?
My wife is my tailoring. And Sonia says in a series almost everywhere. She doesn't appreciate other women handling my pants.
Damn Skippy.
But here's my chocolate, baby.
It
Well,
could
I
be
mean,
a,
in a sense, like she's more of a businesswoman than in America. She's more of a businesswoman than Mom is.
Yeah,
she
she's
my business. Like,
she's becoming like an entrepreneur with what's her
Oh,
name?
it's on page 88.
88.
oh, when she
I
eats the
open it.
chocolate, yeah.
Wait, he left the pretty pink bag?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Present for his wife or me. Why not me? Even a good man like Antonio has a dog's tail.
I didn't get that part. What does that mean?
Wag, wag.
You know what that means.
That means every man is a dog? Is that what that means?
What'd you say, Brandon?
I've never heard that saying before. I've never.
Neither have I.
Neither have I, but a dog is a dog, right? So.
And a tail is a tail.
And a tail is a tail. And chocolate is chocolate. Hello.
There's gonna be a part 2 to Dominicana. Well, I think that's where the sayings lose a little translation, but we get it. Oh yeah, four pieces of chocolate.
And then she said at the end, she said, "Women things that don't belong to me." You know, kind of, and it reminds you that she is still a child.
Yeah, she refers to her body being shaped like a little boy often.
Yeah.
She does that line often.
But she's growing quickly.
Yeah, and she lets you know that she's growing. Remember when she says, "Oh, what if Gabriel could see me now?" Like her breasts were a little fuller. Like, you know, she was more developing into herself.
She loves her Gabriel.
Does anyone have any closing thoughts? Anybody who hasn't said anything yet before we wrap up for this evening?
This was a great discussion, as always.
Was.
Yeah, she. I think that Sherry said it's right. There's going to be there's just a lot of foreshadowing for me with her eating some of the chocolates, hiding the rest, like those secrets that she's kind of burying. I think that.
What do you mean by foreshadowing? I don't understand that term. Can you explain that?
Foreshadowing means like something, for example, she eats some of the chocolates and hides the rest in the freezer. To me, that is foreshadowing like a secret relationship of some sort.
Oh, okay.
Later on down
With
the line. Who knows? Could be with Antonio, but
she better watch it.
But I think that, you know, that idea of having secrets is not lost on Ana. You know, it's not like she's like a perfect angel. You know what I'm saying? I think that we're getting a little more.
And I think she proclaims it, right? That she's the keeper of secrets, right? With Anna X. I think she said something about that, like she's the keeper of secrets.
I remember her saying that.
She said that about Cesar. Right? She said that about Cesar, not like
she
about
said that
her.
about Gabriel. Remember when he?
But she compared that to Cesar's attitude and demeanor when he first came.
Oh yeah, with
over.
The keys.
Yeah.
But she says it on 121 at the end. She says Anna X, the holder of secrets. So she letting you know she got a little bit of mama in her too.
She has spice.
You better have a lot of mama.
She's learning.
120. Okay.
Okay. Next week we're reading pages.
Yeah, Ron put it in the chat.
122 to 189.
Up to 189 next week.
Wow.
And then the following week, Angie will be here, so get your questions together. Seems like we have a lot of questions, so.
Can we bring chocolate to the meeting?
It'll be required.